Before we get into the stories, I would like to let you all know that I'm taking story submissions to narrate. I will credit you in the description of the video unless you ask me not to, so if you have an experience or story in mind that you would like me to read, then you can email me at feedingonfear@gmail.com, and I will be sure to include it in my videos. Thank you so much for watching, and enjoy the stories. As usual, I was on my way home after a day's work. The route was the same as always. Everything was casual. It was a pitch dark night and it was raining. It was typical of the January that was passing, and it was just about after midnight. Right after making the dark curve by the convent with all its tall walls surrounded by towering pines and cedars, something happened out of nowhere. In the blink of an eye, muffled screams echoed through the trees, a sudden movement, and something jumped into the middle of the road. The speed with which everything happened just left me confused. A giant fall left whatever was facing me just as disoriented. It stared at me with a threatening but sort of exhausted look deeply sunken into pale, ashen skin. It twisted its body in a strange way, keeping its now fearful gaze fixed on the car, and with no choice, I hit it as I was already moving and I had no time to slow down. The crash was extremely loud, but it was drowned out by the noise of the rain and the howling winds. I got out of the car in shock, my thoughts blurry, trying to understand just what happened. In front of the car lay a body, giving one last deep, painful gasp, dressed in a blood-soaked habit. It was a nun. It looked like I had run over a churchwoman. Panic grew around me. There wasn't a soul in sight. It was just me, a body, and the car, with its lights on, its door open, and the intense rain shining in the headlights. I lifted the torn, stained veil and uncovered a battered face. The mouth was torn open to the ears, and the nose was missing the tip of it. It had no teeth. This horrifying thing. The entire body looked unreal. I dropped the piece of fabric that remained in my hand. It had already cost her a prayer and 1,000 Hail Marys. Wouldn't be enough for me. A fit of instinctive panic, I dragged the body to the back of my car and opened the trunk. And in a surge of adrenaline, I threw her in and slammed it shut. I just got into the car and sped off. Looking in the rearview mirror, I saw several flashlights coming from the convent, moving around curiously, searching for something. But I was already beyond their reach. Everything had happened in just a few short minutes. It might have just been one or two, I can't say for sure. I drove home, my mind only filled with memories of that convent. All the stories people told about it, the dubious prayers, the animalistic noises in the early hours, the inexplicable lights, everything, even the oldest tales, the magic, the tubercular patients who were now quarantined there and never returned. Whoever entered never came out until now. I arrived home without even realizing it. The relativity of time was working on me in full force. I wandered here and there trying to calm my nerves. Without sleeping, I replayed the accident 1,000 times in my mind, and as the sky brightened and daylight shimmered, the trembling stopped and left only worry. My thoughts were clearer. Everything was wrong. The jump, the lights, my escape. I vaguely planned my next step, to get rid of what I had stored in the car trunk. I drove the car to the old quarry near my house. It was only a couple-minute drive. I parked at the top of the slope, 30 meters above the water, and another 35 meters of depth filled with murky blue water. I opened the trunk, and with a sudden shock, I almost fell into that pit. The light revealed the truth, highlighting the actual horror of my situation. The body inside was something between an animal and a human. There were feminine features here and there, though barely noticeable, and it was severely mutilated, torn to shreds and burned, covered in blood and paint. The arms were long, as were the legs. It must have been nearly twice my size, and its posture was hunched like a quadruped. It had hair in patches, tangled and matted, and the wrists and neck were bound by broken chains. The nails were huge like claws, but they were definitely nails, as were the fingers, and its skeleton was just as spindly as the rest of its body. Terrified again, I dragged the body as best I could and threw it into the water, and I watched it submerge and quickly left. To this day, I don't know what monstrous thing that was. Weeks have passed. I haven't taken that road since then, and I never will. I still carry the fear with me, because surely they, the ones who live there doing God knows what, carry their fury and wrath too.